The execution chamber smelled of blood and fear. It always did. Hana walked through the metal doors without feeling anything at all. Her black armor caught the dim lights as she moved toward the center of the room. Behind her, 2 guards dragged a human prisoner across the floor. His knees scraped against the cold metal, leaving thin streaks of red. Hana had killed many people in this room. She stopped counting after the first 100. The Vraxian Empire needed executioners, and she was the best they had. They took her from her homeworld when she was 5 years old. They taught her how to fight, how to kill, and most importantly, how to feel nothing. Emotions were weakness. Mercy was failure. These were the only truths she knew. The human made a sound as the guards threw him down at her feet. Hana looked at him with cold eyes. He was smaller than most warriors she had executed. His clothes were torn and dirty. Blood dried on his face from where they had beaten him. But his eyes were still bright, still alive with something she did not understand. The guards stepped back. The viewing gallery above filled with Vraxian officers. They came to watch justice be done. The Empire had only discovered humans 3 years ago. These creatures from a small blue planet called Earth had refused to surrender their world. They fought back against the Empire's fleets. They hid in asteroids and attacked supply ships. They were pests that needed to be removed. This one had been caught smuggling weapons to a rebel colony. His name was Taman. That was all Hana knew about him. That was all she needed to know. She pulled her plasma blade from her belt. The weapon hummed to life, glowing with deadly blue light. The standard execution was simple. 1 clean strike across the neck, quick, efficient, painless if she did it correctly. She always did it correctly. Hana raised the blade above her head. Taman looked up at her. He did not beg. He did not cry. Instead, he took a deep breath. And then he began to sing. The sound was so unexpected that Hana froze. Her blade stayed in the air, held still by confusion more than anything else. The human's voice filled the chamber. It was rough and broken from thirst, but the melody was clear, beautiful even. Hana had never heard anything like it before. The Vraxian Empire had songs, but they were war chants and victory hymns. This was different. This was soft and sad and full of something that made her chest feel tight. Taman sang in a language she did not know. The words meant nothing to her, but somehow the feeling behind them was clear. Longing, loss, love, things that the Empire had trained out of her so long ago that she barely remembered they existed. The officers in the viewing gallery began shouting. They wanted her to finish it, to stop this nonsense and do her duty. But Hana could not move. Her hand, which had never trembled before, started to shake. The plasma blade wavered in her grip. She stared at the human. He kept singing, his eyes closed now. Tears ran down his dirty face, cutting clean lines through the blood and dust. He was saying goodbye to something. Someone. A memory that mattered more to him than his own life. The blade felt heavy in Hana's hand. Heavier than it had ever felt before. She had killed rebels who screamed. She had killed soldiers who fought back. She had killed leaders who tried to bargain for their lives. But none of them had ever done this. None of them had ever made her feel this strange, uncomfortable sensation in her chest. The song ended. Taman opened his eyes and looked at her. He was waiting for death, ready for it, but something in his expression was not fear. It was peace. Hana's blade lowered slightly, just an inch, then another. The shouting from above grew louder. She could hear Commander Minho screaming at her to execute the prisoner immediately, but the words seemed to come from very far away. What was that? Hana heard herself ask. Her voice sounded strange. She had not asked a prisoner a question in 7 years. Taman blinked in surprise. A song, he said quietly. His voice was hoarse. From my home. Why did you sing? Because I wanted to remember who I am before I die. He smiled a little, even though it clearly hurt his split lip. And I thought maybe you should hear something beautiful before you take another life. Hana felt something crack inside her. A wall she did not know existed. The blade in her hand suddenly felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. She had stood in this room hundreds of times. She had performed her duty without question. But now, staring at this small human who sang about things she did not understand, she could not do it. Guards, she said, her voice sharp and commanding. Take the prisoner to holding cell 7. The chamber went silent. Even the shouting stopped. One of the guards stepped forward carefully. Commander Hana, the orders were... I know what the orders were. She turned to look at him and he stepped back quickly. Everyone feared her. I need to question him first. There may be intelligence about other rebel operations. It was a lie. She knew it was a lie. The guards knew it was a lie. But no one questioned Hana. She was too dangerous, too important to the Empire. The guards grabbed Taman and pulled him to his feet. He looked at her with confusion and something else. Hope, maybe. She turned away before she could think too much about it. Commander Hana! Mino's voice crackled over the speakers. You will report to my office immediately. She did not answer. She walked out of the execution chamber with steady steps, her face showing nothing. But inside, something had changed. The song still echoed in her mind. That strange, soft melody that spoke of things she had forgotten. In her quarters that night, Hana sat on her bunk and stared at her hands. These hands had killed so many. They were weapons just like the rest of her. That was all she was supposed to be. A tool for the Empire to use. But tools did not feel. Tools did not hesitate. Tools did not hear a song and feel their chest grow tight with something they could not name. She closed her eyes and tried to remember the melody. It came back to her easily, each note clear in her memory. She found herself humming it quietly. The sound felt foreign in her throat, but not wrong. Not wrong at all. Tomorrow she would be ordered to execute the human. Mino had made that clear when she reported to him. No more delays, no more questions. Justice would be done and she would be the one to deliver it. Hana laid back on her bunk and stared at the ceiling. The song played over and over in her mind. She wondered what the words meant. She wondered why it mattered. Most of all, she wondered why her hand had shaken when she held the blade, why for the first time in her life as an executioner, she had not wanted to kill. The human had sung about remembering who he was. But his song had made Hana ask a different question. A dangerous question. Who was she before the Empire made her into this? She did not have an answer. But for the first time in 20 years, she wanted to find one. The holding cells were in the lower levels of the station, where the air tasted like metal and recycled water. Hana walked through the dim corridors alone. It was late in the night cycle, and most of the guards were at their posts elsewhere. She had made sure of that. Her boots made soft sounds on the floor as she approached Cell 7. Through the small window in the door, she could see Taman sitting against the far wall. Someone had given him water and bandaged the worst of his wounds. His eyes were closed, but she knew he was not sleeping. Prisoners rarely slept the night before their execution. She pressed her hand to the scanner. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. Taman's eyes opened immediately. He looked at her with surprise and fear, but he did not move from where he sat. I am not here to kill you, Hana said. She did not know why she felt the need to say it out loud. Not yet, then why are you here? His voice was stronger now that he had water. It was a good voice, clear and warm. Hana stepped inside and let the door close behind her. She stayed near it, keeping distance between them. The song. I want to know about the song. Taman stared at her. Then slowly he laughed. It was a tired sound, but genuine. You came all the way down here in the middle of the night to ask me about a song? Yes? He shook his head, still smiling a little. You people have conquered 73 star systems. You have weapons that can crack planets. You have soldiers who feel nothing and kill without question. And you want to know about a song. I want to understand why you sang it. Hana moved closer but stayed beyond his reach. Old habits. You are about to die. Why waste your last breath on music? Because music matters. Taman pushed himself up to sit straighter. His chains rattled softly. Because in my last moment I wanted to be human, not just a prisoner. Not just a name on your execution list. I wanted to remember my grandmother teaching me that song when I was 6. I wanted to feel that again. Feel what? Love. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Connection. Memory. All the things that make life worth living. Hana did not understand. The Empire had taken those things from her. Love was attachment. Attachment was weakness. She had been taught this over and over until it became the only truth she knew. But standing here listening to this human talk about his grandmother, she felt that strange tightness in her chest again. Tell me what the words mean, she said. Taman studied her face for a long moment. Why do you care? I do not know. It was the most honest thing she had said in years. But I need to understand. He nodded slowly. It is an old Korean folk song. Korean was A culture from Earth. From a place that does not exist anymore, not the way it used to. The song is about a bird that flies away from home. About missing the mountains and rivers of the place you were born. About longing for something you cannot return to. You are from Earth. Yes, from a city called Busan. By the ocean. His eyes grew distant. I left when I was 19. Thought I would see the galaxy and come back rich with stories. That was 12 years ago. Earth refused to join your empire 3 years ago, and now I cannot go home. If I try, your ships will kill me. So I smuggle weapons to colonies that want to be free. It is not much, but it is something. Hana sat down against the wall across from him. She had never sat with a prisoner before. She was breaking so many protocols that she had stopped counting. The Empire brings order to chaos, peace to war. The Empire takes away choice. Taemin's voice was firm but not angry. You call it peace. We call it slavery. I have seen rebel worlds. I have seen the violence and suffering that comes from chaos. And I have seen what happens to people under your empire's boot. He leaned forward. You take children from their families and turn them into soldiers. You erase cultures and languages. You make everyone the same, everyone obedient. That is not peace. That is just quiet suffering, Hana wanted to argue. She wanted to defend the empire that had given her purpose and strength. But the words would not come. Instead, she asked, "What was your grandmother like?" The change in subject seemed to surprise him. His expression softened. She was small and tough. Survived a war when she was young. Lost her husband and her home, but rebuilt her life anyway. She taught me to cook, to sing, to laugh even when things were hard. She died when I was 15. The song was her favorite. You loved her. More than anything. He smiled sadly. Love is not weakness, you know. It is what makes us strong enough to keep going when everything is terrible. Hana thought about that. She tried to remember if she had ever loved anyone. There were memories, faint and far away, of a woman with kind eyes, of being held and feeling safe. But the memories were like smoke. Every time she tried to hold them, they slipped away. I had a family once, she said quietly. Before the Empire took me. I do not remember them anymore. That is the saddest thing I have ever heard. She looked up at him, surprised. Why? Because they probably still remember you. Somewhere out there, someone wonders what happened to you. Someone grieves for you, and you do not even know who they are. The tightness in her chest became pain. Real, actual pain. Hana stood up quickly, suddenly needing to leave. I should not be here. Wait. Taemin stood too, his chains rattling. Are you really going to kill me tomorrow? She stopped at the door but did not turn around. Those are my orders. But is that what you want to do? Hana pressed her hand to the scanner. The door opened. What I want does not matter. That is where you are wrong. His voice followed her into the corridor. What you want is the only thing that matters. It is what makes you alive instead of just a weapon. She left without answering, but his words followed her all the way back to her quarters. That night she could not sleep. She kept thinking about grandmothers and songs and the idea that she might have had a family once. That somewhere in the galaxy, people who shared her blood might still exist. People who would know her real name. She pulled up the Empire's database on her terminal. Her file was extensive. Hundreds of successful missions. 0 failures. Psychological evaluations that praised her lack of emotional response. But there was nothing about her life before. Just a number and a date. The day she became property of the Empire. Hana searched for her home world. It took time. The Empire had renamed it after conquest. But she found it eventually. A small planet on the outer rim. The population had been scattered to work camps after they resisted integration. Most were dead now. The few survivors were registered as labor units in mining operations. She wondered if her family was among the dead or the laborers. She wondered if they remembered a little girl who had been taken away. She wondered if they sang songs about longing and loss. For the first time in 20 years, Hana cried. The tears felt strange on her face. She had thought she had forgotten how. In the morning, she received her orders. Commander Minho would oversee the execution personally. There would be no delays. No excuses. The human would die, and if Hana could not do her duty, she would be removed from service and sent for reconditioning. Reconditioning meant they would erase her mind and start over. She would become a blank slate again. A perfect weapon with no questions and no doubts. Hana looked at herself in the mirror. She saw the scars of 100 battles, the cold eyes of a killer, the face of someone who had been very good at her job for a very long time. But she also saw something else now. A crack in the armor, a question that would not go away. What if Taman was right? What if the only thing that mattered was what she wanted? She picked up her plasma blade and headed toward the execution chamber. But this time her hand was not steady. This time she was not sure she could do what was expected of her. This time she was afraid. Not of death or pain or failure. She was afraid of killing a man who had reminded her that she used to be human too. The execution chamber was more crowded this time. Commander Minho stood in the center of the viewing gallery, his arms crossed over his broad chest. Next to him stood Grand Marshal Quan, the highest-ranking officer in this sector. His presence meant this execution had become important, a test of loyalty, a message to anyone who might think about questioning orders. Hana walked into the chamber with perfect posture and steady steps. Her armor was polished until it gleamed. Her plasma blade hung at her side, ready. To anyone watching, she looked exactly like what she was supposed to be. The Empire's perfect executioner. But inside, everything was chaos. The guards brought Taman in. He looked worse than before. They had beaten him again, probably on Minho's orders. His left eye was swollen shut and fresh blood ran from his nose. But he walked on his own feet. He held his head up. They forced him to his knees in the center of the room. Hana stepped forward and took her position. She pulled the plasma blade from her belt and activated it. The blue glow lit up Taman's bruised face. "Executioner Hana," Quan's voice boomed through the speakers. "This human has been found guilty of treason against the Vraxian Empire. He has armed rebels and attacked our ships. The sentence is death. You will carry out this sentence immediately. There will be no delays. No questions. Do you understand?" "Yes, Grand Marshal." Her voice did not shake. Years of training kept it steady. "Then proceed." Hana raised the blade above her head. This was the moment. One clean strike and it would be over. Her duty would be done. The questions would stop. Everything would go back to the way it was supposed to be. She looked down at Taman. He was looking back at her. And then, just like before, he began to sing. But this was not the soft, sad song from the execution chamber. This was something different, something fierce and strong. His voice, even broken and hoarse, carried power. The melody was sharp and driving. It spoke of resistance and rebellion, of people who refused to kneel, of chains being broken and tyrants falling. Hana recognized it somehow, though she had never heard it before. It was a battle song, not for war but for freedom. The officers above began shouting. Minho screamed at the guards to silence the prisoner. But Taman kept singing, his one good eye locked on Hana's face. He was telling her something with that song, something important. You have a choice. You have always had a choice. The blade trembled in Hana's hands. She stared at this small, broken human who refused to die quietly, who used his last breath not to beg but to fight, to be defiant, to be human. And suddenly, with perfect clarity, Hana understood. She had been a weapon for 20 years, a tool without feelings or questions. But tools did not cry in the night. Tools did not wonder about lost families. Tools did not feel their chest grow tight when a prisoner sang about his grandmother. She was not a tool. She had never been a tool, she was a person, and people could choose. Hana's hand stopped shaking. The blade steadied. But instead of bringing it down on Taman's neck, she let it fall from her fingers. It clattered on the metal floor, the blue glow fading as it deactivated. The chamber went silent. Even Taman stopped singing. "I will not do this," Hana said. Her voice rang clear in the sudden quiet. "I will not kill him." For 3 seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. The moment hung in the air like a held breath. Then Quan's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Guards! Execute them both, now!" The chamber exploded into motion. 6 guards rushed toward Hana and Taman, their weapons raised. But Hana was already moving. She had been trained for combat since she was 5 years old. She had fought in 100 battles, and now, for the first time in her life, she was fighting for something she believed in. She grabbed the nearest guard and used his momentum to throw him into 2 others. They went down in a tangle of armor and limbs. Another guard fired his plasma rifle, but Hana was already rolling aside. The shot hit the wall behind her, leaving a burning mark. She came up with the fallen guard's weapon and fired twice. 2 guards dropped. The remaining soldiers hesitated, uncertain. Hana had trained most of them. They knew what she could do. Run, Hana shouted at Taman. The south exit. Taman stumbled to his feet, his chains making it hard to move. Hana fired 3 more shots to cover him, then grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. Behind them, more guards were pouring into the chamber. Alarms began to wail throughout the station. They burst through the south exit into a narrow corridor. Hana's mind was already working, planning their route. She knew every part of this station. She had walked these halls for years. Now that knowledge would save them instead of serving the Empire. "Can you run?" she asked Taman. "Do I have a choice?" He was breathing hard, pain clear on his face. But he smiled. "No." She pulled him forward. "Stay close to me." They ran through corridors and down maintenance shafts. Hana shot out security cameras as they went. She knew it would not stop the Empire from tracking them, but it would slow them down. Every second counted. Behind them, she could hear boots pounding on metal, voices shouting, the sound of weapons being charged. The Empire was coming for them with everything it had. They reached a service elevator that went down to the docking levels. Hana hit the button and pulled Taman inside. The doors started to close just as a squad of soldiers rounded the corner. They fired, but the shots hit the closing doors. In the elevator, Taman leaned against the wall, gasping for air. "You just threw away your entire life for me. Why?" Hana checked her stolen rifle, making sure it was fully charged. "Because you were right. What I want is the only thing that matters, and I do not want to be their weapon anymore." "So what do you want to be?" She looked at him. "I do not know yet, but I will figure it out." The elevator reached the docking level. The doors opened onto chaos. Alarms blared everywhere. Security forces were sealing all the exits, checking every ship. Hana could see at least 20 guards between them and the nearest functional transport. "We will never make it through that," Taman said. "Yes, we will." Hana pulled him out of the elevator. "I trained half of those guards. I know how they think. Follow my lead." She led him along the shadows at the edge of the docking bay. Her eyes tracked every guard, every camera, every blind spot. She had spent years learning to see these things. Now she used that knowledge to hide instead of hunt. They reached a small maintenance transport near the far wall. It was old and slow, but it would fly. Hana broke the lock and pushed Taman inside. "Do you know how to pilot one of these?" she asked. "I am a smuggler. Of course I can pilot it." "Good." She climbed in after him and sealed the door. "Get us out of here. I will handle anyone who tries to stop us." The transport's engines coughed to life. Immediately, lights and sirens focused on their position. Guards ran toward them from all directions. Ships began launching from other docks to intercept them. Taman worked the controls with quick, practiced movements. The transport lifted off the deck and shot toward the exit. Plasma fire lit up around them. Shots hit their shields, making the whole ship shake. Hana opened the transport's side weapons panel and took control of the guns. She was not a pilot, but she was an excellent shot. She fired back at the pursuing ships, her shots precise and controlled. 2 pursuit fighters exploded. A third veered off, its wing damaged. They burst through the station's atmospheric shield into open space. Behind them, 6 Imperial fighters followed, with more launching every second. "They are going to kill us," Taman said, his hands tight on the controls. "Maybe." Hana kept firing. "But we are already free." "That matters." Taman looked at her, surprise clear on his bruised face. Then he laughed. It was a wild, reckless sound. "You are insane." "No." Hana smiled for the first time in years. It felt strange on her face, but good. "I am human." Finally. The transport jumped to faster than light speed and the station disappeared behind them. They had escaped. Against all odds, against the entire Empire, they had survived. Hana sat back in her seat and let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Her hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time. From something else. Something like joy. The transport ship rattled as it flew through an asteroid field. Alarms beeped constantly, warning about hull damage and failing systems. They had been running for 3 days, jumping from system to system, never staying anywhere long enough to rest properly. Hana sat in the back, trying to repair a damaged power coupling. Her fingers worked automatically, following training that had been drilled into her since childhood. But her mind was somewhere else, thinking about the life she had left behind, thinking about what came next. "We are being followed." Taman's voice came from the pilot seat, tense and worried. Hana was on her feet immediately, moving to stand behind him. "How many?" "2 ships." Small and fast. They have been tracking us for the last hour. He pulled up a display showing 2 red dots getting closer. They are good. Better than the usual Imperial patrols. Hana felt her stomach drop. She knew what those ships were. Who they were. Those are executioner vessels. They sent hunters after us. Executioners? Like you? Yes, like I was. She studied the display, her tactical mind already working. They will not stop. They will not give up. The Empire does not forgive betrayal, especially from one of their own. Taman looked back at her. Can we outrun them? No, this transport is too damaged and too slow. She thought for a moment, running through possibilities. Head for that large asteroid. The one with the deep crater on the south side. Are you planning what I think you are planning? We cannot run forever. Better to fight on ground we choose. Taman nodded and changed course, pushing the transport toward the asteroid. Behind them, the 2 hunter ships adjusted their path to follow. They were not even trying to hide anymore. They knew Hana could see them. They wanted her to know they were coming. The transport landed hard in the crater, kicking up dust that had been settled for millions of years. Hana grabbed weapons and emergency supplies while Taman shut down all but essential systems. Stay with the ship, Hana said. If I do not come back, take off immediately and head for the coordinates I showed you. The human resistance will help you. I am not leaving you here alone. You are not a fighter. You will only get in my way. Taman stood and faced her. Despite his injuries, despite being half her size, he looked stubborn. You saved my life. You gave up everything for me. The least I can do is watch your back, Hana wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him he would die out there. But looking at his determined face, she realized arguing was useless. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understand? Understood. They left the transport and moved into the crater's edge, taking positions behind rocks that provided cover. The asteroid had almost no gravity, which meant combat would be 3-dimensional and fast. Hana preferred it that way. She had trained for this. The 2 hunter ships landed on the opposite side of the crater. For a long moment, nothing happened. Dust settled. Silence stretched out, broken only by the sound of Hana and Taman's breathing in their helmets. Then a voice came over the communication channel. A voice Hana knew well. Hana, it has been a long time since we trained together, G1. Of course the Empire would send her. G1 had been in the same training group as Hana. They had grown up together, learned to kill together. Before the Empire removed such feelings, they might have been called friends. I did not expect them to send you. Hana replied. You are the best they ever made. It took the second best to hunt you. Jiwan's voice was calm, professional. You know I will not fail. You trained me too well. Then you know I will not surrender. I know. That is why I brought help. A second figure appeared from behind the ships, smaller than Jiwan, but moving with the same deadly grace. Hana recognized the fighting style immediately. Her chest tightened with unexpected pain. Young Ho, another from their training group. He had been the youngest, the one who struggled most with the Empire's conditioning. Hana had helped him, taught him extra lessons when their instructors were not watching. If she had been capable of caring about anyone back then, it would have been him. Hello, Hana, Young Ho said. His voice was harder now, colder. The Empire had finished what they started with him. They told us you went insane, that the human used some kind of mind control on you. He sang a song, Hana said. That is all. And it reminded me that we used to be people before they turned us into weapons. We are weapons, Jiwan said. That is our purpose. Our honor. You have betrayed everything we stand for. No. I finally remembered what I was before they took it away. Hana checked her rifle, making sure it was ready. You could remember too. Both of you. It is not too late. It has always been too late. Jiwan's voice held no emotion at all. You are a traitor to the Empire. The sentence is death. I will make it quick for the sake of what we once were. Then come and try. The battle began without warning. Jiwan and Young Ho moved in perfect coordination, trained by the same methods that had shaped Hana. They leaped across the crater in the low gravity, weapons firing. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness. Hana pushed Taman down behind cover and returned fire. Her shots were precise, forcing her opponents to take cover. But she knew this was only the beginning. A firefight would not win this battle. It would come down to close combat where executioners excelled. She was right. Young Ho flanked wide, using the crater's terrain to hide his approach. Hana tracked him through brief glimpses of movement. When he made his attack, leaping over a boulder with his blade drawn, she was ready. They met in the air, two weapons masters fighting in slow motion as the low gravity extended every movement. Hana blocked his first strike, countered with a kick that sent him spinning. But he recovered instantly, slashing upward. The blade caught her shoulder armor, cutting through it like paper. They landed and separated. Hana's arm burned with pain, but she ignored it. Pain was familiar. Pain was old friend. Young-ho attacked again, his blade moving so fast it was almost invisible. Hana gave ground, deflecting strikes that would have killed a normal soldier. Behind her, she heard Taemin shout a warning. She ducked just as Jiwon's blade cut through the space where her head had been. Now she was fighting both of them at once. Two executioners, perfectly trained, working together seamlessly. Even at her best, this would have been almost impossible. And she was tired, wounded, and slowed by doubt. A blade got through her defense. Then another. Blood began to flow inside her armor. Her movements became slower. Jiwon and Young-ho pressed their advantage, sensing victory. Then Taemin did something completely unexpected. He hit a control on his suit and vented all his oxygen at once. The sudden explosion of gas created a massive cloud of white mist in the low gravity. It blinded everyone, including him. "Hana, the gravity control," he shouted. "Northeast side." She understood immediately. She ran through the mist toward the transport ship, trusting his direction. Behind her, she heard Jiwon cursing, trying to track her. Hana reached the ship and found what Taemin had seen. An old mining gravity controller used to process asteroids. She pulled her rifle and fired at its power core. The controller exploded. The carefully balanced gravity field across the crater destabilized. Suddenly, everyone was falling and floating at random as gravity waves rippled through the space. Hana used the chaos. She grabbed a rock and threw herself toward Young-ho, hitting him hard enough to send him spinning out of control. She caught Jiwon's arm as they passed each other and used her momentum to break it. Jiwon screamed, the first real emotion Hana had ever heard from her. The gravity stabilized at nearly zero. They were all floating now, disoriented and struggling. Hana grabbed Taemin and activated her suit's thrusters, pushing them back toward the transport. "Stop!" Jiwon's voice was filled with pain and anger. "This changes nothing. The Empire will send more hunters. You cannot run forever." Hana looked back at her former training partner, at Young-ho, who was still spinning in the void, at the two people who might have been her friends in another life. "Maybe not," she said, "but I will run today, and tomorrow, and every day after that, because being hunted while free is better than being safe while enslaved." She pulled Taemin into the transport and sealed the door. Young-ho was recovering, reaching for his weapon. Hana fired the thrusters and lifted off before he could shoot. Inside the ship, Taemin pulled off his helmet, gasping. "That was the stupidest, most insane thing I have ever done. You saved my life." Hana's hands shook as she set the course. "That was very brave. Very stupid, but very brave. We are alive. That is what matters." They jumped away from the asteroid, leaving Jiwon and Young-ho behind. Hana set the autopilot and slumped in her seat. Her wounds needed treatment, but they could wait. For now, she just needed to breathe. "They will keep coming," Taemin said quietly. "I know. But we will keep running." "Yes." Hana looked at him and managed a small smile. "Together." The human resistance base was hidden inside a dead moon at the edge of known space. Taemin had brought them here 3 weeks after their escape from the asteroid. The journey had been hard. Hana's wounds had become infected, and she spent 5 days in fever while Taemin kept them moving, staying one step ahead of Imperial patrols. When they finally landed, Hana could barely walk. Resistance fighters met them at the dock with weapons raised, suspicious and hostile. They knew what she was, what she had done, how many of their people she had killed. "That is the executioner," one of them said, his rifle pointed at her head. "That is Hana. She killed my brother. She killed hundreds of us." "She saved my life," Taemin said, standing between them. "She gave up everything to help me escape. She is not your enemy anymore. Once a killer, always a killer. Then I guess we are all killers here." Taemin's voice was hard, because this is war and we have all done things we regret. The question is not what she was. It is what she chooses to be now. The resistance commander, a woman named Somin with scars across her face and grief in her eyes, studied Hana for a long moment. "She stays under guard. If she tries anything, we kill her. No second chances. It was not trust, but it was enough. The base was small and crowded. Humans from a dozen different worlds lived here, all refugees from the Empire's expansion. They had lost homes, families, entire cultures. And Hana had been part of the machine that took those things away. She felt their hatred like a physical weight. When she walked through the corridors, people stopped talking. Children stared. Some spat at her feet. She did not blame them. She had earned every bit of their anger. But slowly, things began to change. Hana started helping with whatever work needed doing. She repaired ships with skills learned in the Empire's service. She taught combat techniques to fighters who needed better training. She never asked for anything in return. She just worked. One day, a young fighter named Minseo approached her in the repair bay. He was barely 20, nervous but determined. "I heard you fought 2 executioners at once and survived." "Is that true?" "Yes, could you teach me?" "The Empire killed my parents. I want to fight back, but I am not strong enough yet." Hana looked at him. She saw herself in his eyes. The anger, the need for purpose, the desire to be strong enough to matter. Fighting will not bring them back, I know, but maybe it will stop the Empire from taking someone else's parents. She nodded slowly. "Tomorrow. Be at Training Hall 3 at dawn. Bring anyone else who wants to learn." The next morning, 30 people showed up. By the end of the week, it was 50. Hana taught them everything she knew about Imperial tactics and weaknesses. She made them better fighters. But more than that, she tried to teach them to stay human while doing it, to remember what they were fighting for. "The Empire tried to make me forget that feelings matter," she told them one day. "That love and mercy are weaknesses, but those things are what make us different from them. Do not lose that, no matter how long this war lasts." Weeks turned into months. Hana's wounds healed, but she carried new scars. These ones were different. They came from acceptance and purpose instead of duty and orders. She was building something instead of destroying. It felt strange and uncomfortable and right. Taman spent his time planning supply runs and coordinating with other resistance cells. But at night, they would sit together in the observation deck and talk. He told her stories about Earth, about music and art and all the beautiful, foolish things humans did. She told him about slowly remembering her past, about dreams where she saw her mother's face. "Do you think you will ever find your family?" he asked one night. "I do not know if they are still alive. The Empire sent most of my people to work camps." She looked out at the stars. "But I am looking. Someone is helping me search records we have stolen from Imperial databases. And if you find them, I will tell them I am sorry for forgetting. And I will try to be the daughter they lost if they will let me." Taman reached over and took her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. "You are already someone they would be proud of." The peace did not last. 6 months after they arrived at the base, Imperial ships found them. A massive fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the moon. Dozens of warships, hundreds of fighters, and thousands of soldiers. Grand Marshal Quan had come personally to destroy the resistance base. The alarm sirens were deafening. People ran in every direction, trying to reach ships and evacuation shuttles. But everyone knew the truth. There were not enough ships. Not everyone would escape. Soman called an emergency meeting of all fighters and pilots. Hana stood with them in the command center, watching as the Imperial fleet positioned itself to attack. "We have maybe 30 minutes before they start firing," Soman said. "We can evacuate the children and medical patients, but that is all. The rest of us stay and fight. We hold them off as long as possible." "We cannot win," someone said. "They have too many ships." "We do not need to win," Soman's voice was steel. "We just need to buy time for others to escape. Our lives for theirs. That is the deal." The room went quiet. Everyone understood. This was not a battle they would survive, but their deaths would save hundreds of civilians. It was an acceptable trade. Hana stepped forward. "I have an idea. It is dangerous. It is probably stupid, but it might work." Everyone turned to look at her. Soman raised an eyebrow. "I am listening." "The Empire wants me. Quan came here personally because I betrayed him. He wants revenge." Hana pulled up a communication panel. "If I broadcast a message to him, challenge him directly, he will focus on me. His ego will not let him ignore it." "And what good does that do?" Minseo asked. "It distracts them. While they are focused on hunting me, you evacuate everyone. Not just children. Everyone." Taman grabbed her arm. "That is suicide. You would be alone against an entire fleet." "No." She looked at him. I will not be alone. I will have you. What are you talking about? Hana's plan was insane. She would take a small ship, the fastest they had, and lead the Imperial fleet away from the base. Taman would pilot while she handled weapons and communications. They would broadcast a message across all frequencies, not just to Quan but to every Imperial soldier, every executioner, every person who had been taken and trained to serve the Empire. What kind of message? Soman asked. The same one that saved me. Hana looked at Taman. A song. They launched 20 minutes later in a modified fighter that was more engine than ship. As soon as they cleared the moon, Hana opened all communication channels and began broadcasting. But she was not the one who sang. Taman's voice filled the void, transmitted across Imperial frequencies that were impossible to block. He sang the song from the execution chamber, the sad, beautiful melody about longing and home. Then he sang the battle song about freedom and defiance. Then he sang others. Earth songs in a dozen languages. Human songs about love and loss and hope and rebellion. And between songs, Hana spoke. I was Executioner Hana. The Empire took me when I was 5. They trained me to kill without question. They made me forget my family, my name, everything that made me human. But I remembered. Because of a song. Because of a man who reminded me that I had a choice. The Imperial fleet began to pursue them. Quan himself came on the communication channel, his voice shaking with rage. You dare mock the Empire. I will destroy you slowly for this betrayal. I am not mocking the Empire, Hana said calmly. I am offering freedom. To every soldier listening. To every executioner who thinks they are a weapon. You are not. You are people who were stolen and broken. But you can choose to remember who you were. You can choose to be something else. Behind them, the Imperial fleet followed. More ships joined the pursuit. Exactly as Hana had planned. Taman piloted through asteroid fields and nebula clouds, always staying just out of weapons range. And all the while, he kept singing. The resistance base evacuated everyone. Every single person made it to a ship and escaped. By the time Quan realized he had been tricked, it was too late. The base was empty except for automated defenses that exploded as soon as his ships approached. But Quan did not care about the base anymore. He wanted Hana. He sent his entire fleet after her single ship. We cannot keep running forever, Taman said, his hands tight on the controls. We are almost out of fuel. I know. Hana watched the display as dozens of Imperial ships closed in. But we did what we needed to do. Everyone escaped. That is what matters. Is it enough for you? Is dying here enough? Hana thought about that. A month ago, she would have said yes. Dying to save others was a good death. An honorable end. But now, having tasted freedom and friendship and purpose, she wanted more. She wanted to live. No, she said. It is not enough. I want to find my family. I want to help more people escape the Empire. I want to see Earth someday and hear all the songs that humans sing. Taman smiled. Then let us survive this. He cut all power except life support and let the ship drift into a dense asteroid field. The Imperial ships lost their sensor lock. For precious minutes, Hana and Taman floated in silence, holding their breath as patrol ships searched nearby. One ship came very close. Close enough that Hana could see the pilot through the viewport. An executioner, young and efficient, following orders without question, just like she used to do. The executioner's ship passed within meters of them. Hana waited for the scan that would give them away. But it never came. Instead, the ship continued past and rejoined the search pattern farther away. Taman started breathing again. Lucky. No. Hana stared at the ship that had spared them. Not lucky. They let us go. The executioner saw us and chose not to report it. How do you know? Because I know how good their sensors are. They could not have missed us at that range. Hana felt something warm in her chest. Hope, maybe. Someone heard the message. Someone chose differently. They waited in the asteroid field for 6 hours. Eventually, the Imperial fleet gave up and left the system. Quan's voice came over the communication channel one last time, promising that he would hunt them forever. That there was no place in the galaxy they could hide. Hana shut off the communication panel and smiled. Let him hunt. We will keep running, and every time we run, we will sing. We will broadcast our message to every Imperial soldier and every executioner. We will remind them that they have a choice. That will make us the most hunted people in the galaxy. Yes. She looked at him, but it will also make us the most important. Because every person who hears our song and remembers their humanity is another crack in the Empire's foundation. Eventually, all those cracks will bring the whole thing down. Taman reached over and took her hand. So what do we do now? Hana thought about her family somewhere in the galaxy. About all the other people who had been taken and broken like her. About the long fight ahead and the songs they would sing. Now, she said, we go find others who want to be free. We build something better than the Empire. And we never stop singing. They fired up the engines and jumped away into the endless stars. Behind them, the Empire still ruled most of the galaxy. But somewhere in the darkness, seeds of rebellion were growing. Songs were being remembered. Choices were being made. And for the first time in 20 years, Hana knew exactly who she was. Not a weapon, not a tool, not the Empire's executioner. Just Hana, a person who had found her voice again. A person who chose freedom, and that was enough.